And we are live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Gathering Paracast. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Heidi, and we're here in our spooky month of October.
Yes.
Gathering around our metaphysical tables because we're not together tonight.
We aren't. I was feeling a little beside myself and not quite right. So I decided that I was gonna be home, and Heidi's waiting for me at the studio, but I didn't come there. So
No.
It is what it is. Last week we were live on location talking about some stories, and we actually showed you the place that it happened. But tonight we thought we'd talk about some things that have maybe happened to us while we've been investigating or other things. My take on it was to do something that kind of scared me. And, I think we talked about this before. We've been investigating for over 15 years and hundreds of cases, and I can count on one hand the number that I was scared during, so, but you start the stories.
Okay, so I submitted an audio to Jason because I wanted to look at this from a little bit different perspective, because the same thing, I've been investigating for over 18 years, and it's rare that I'm scared in an investigation. It's just, it doesn't happen, thankfully, because I think I would do stupid things if I was scared. Yeah. So it's good. But so this was a bit interesting twist because, I mean, yes, I have been scared by spirits, but it's almost like an after the fact, where it catches up with me that what happened. And it's like, oh my gosh, that was dangerous or whatever. So this one, we were at Edinburgh Manor in Iowa. And what I thought was interesting about this investigation is it was this, it's an old poor farm out in the middle of not much. There isn't anything out there. So it was a poor farm. And then I think it was a nursing home, assisted living, some other, just, it had its life, right, of different things that it was. So this building, but it's out in the middle of nothing. And what we've experienced, and maybe you've experienced this too, is when you go to some of these locations, I mean, they're advertised on the internet, people post videos and photos and they say where they are and whatever. And so you get people that probably live in the area or not too far away that, want to come check it out. And so every once in a while we'll be at a location that, someone comes in and tries to get in and they're, pulling on the door or whatever. And so the owners are usually like, hey, keep the doors locked when you're investigating inside because you don't want people coming in. And, and same thing with the critters too. Sometimes it's like, don't prop the door open because raccoons come in. I don't know how many times I've heard that. Don't prop the door open because the raccoons will come inside. I'm like, okay, I don't want raccoons in here either. So we're in this overnight investigation and it's hot and we don't have the doors and windows open because of, people that might come out. But, every once in a while we have to run out, get something. There's a building out back that has air conditioning. We go back, we take a break, recharge batteries, whatever, and then come back out. Well, in this location, and it was, it was dark, it's overnight. And we kept hearing this, when you're walking on a cement floor and there's like grit and gravel on the cement floor and it crunches under your shoes. So we kept hearing that noise while we were investigating, someone walking very slowly, just creeping along with this, you can't hear footsteps, but you can hear the crunch of the grit under their shoes.
Yeah.
And what was actually the most scary for me in this is to imagine it's not a spirit, but what if a human got in? We weren't paying attention.
I know.
And some door was unlocked or whatever. And I remember in this investigation specifically, I was sitting next to Cindy and I said to her, if someone like a human walks through that door, because it sounded like someone's coming through the room and they're going to show up in that doorway. If someone human actually walks up and comes around that door frame, I'm going to pass out. Like I am literally going to tip over. And because then what do? Now you don't know who it could be.
Yeah.
It could have, bad thoughts and
Mhm.
intentions, or whatever. They may not just be messing around. So to me, that's like the most terrifying thing, is to have a human show up that we're not expecting, that we don't know
Yeah.
who they are, and we
Yeah.
don't know what their motives are. So that to me is like the most terrifying thing, which is the total opposite you'd think of for paranormal investigation.
Mhm.
Looking for spirits, you're looking for, something that's really evil or malevolent or whatever. And it's like, I can get through that
Yeah.
better than I can get through possibly having a human come
Yes.
after me and sneak in. So, because that to me was one of the more terrifying in the moment investigations, because I thought, what am I to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? They could come in with a gun. They could come in with some kind of weapon. They could come in anyway. So, but we did have an interesting audio that came up from this investigation. So I sent it to Jason to put on, and I hope you guys can hear it because it's so faint. But it was a clear phrase that was said by, it sounds like a woman. She sounds like a woman, and it is none of our voices. So there were I think there was 4 gals and 2 guys, or it was 3 and 3. I can't remember now who all was on this investigation, but either way, it wasn't any of the women that were in the investigation. I'm one of them. Cindy was one. It's not our voices. I think it was 4 women and 2 guys. And the 2 other gals, it's not their voices either. And we're all accounted for. So it's a very cool audio. I hope you guys can hear it. Just get real close, turn up your volume, get some headphones on, whatever you got to do, and listen to this audio because it was very cool. Okay, so it was so hard to hear because they had, there's whatever, but if you listen, you can hear someone say, "God help me," in that audio. And it is like, if you have it with headphones on, I'm pretty sure you can hear it. It is so clear that she says, "God help me." And then I know Trost played it twice, so you can hear it a second, try and hear it a second time. But when we heard that, we were stunned because it's a clear phrase. It's a complete phrase, and it fits with what we knew of the history of the place, which it was tough on a good day. This place was not a happy place for most of the people that were there. And this woman is basically expressing her just complete, she's just hopeless. She just says, "God help me." And anyway, so that was very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I've heard good things about Edinburgh Manor?
Yeah.
We were really close to there actually a month ago, and one of the other investigators from one of the Iowa paranormal bunch I had talked to before we went there, and she said that was a good one to be at too.
I would go back there.
Yeah, we don't do those very often, but when we do, it's fun because it's like you're just having fun, kind of sort of.
Yeah.
But I have heard that. So I think for me, I'm going to start with one that wasn't, you and I have investigated it for paranormal activity, but the story that I'm going to talk about is, so for all the cryptid lovers out there. So a number of years ago, Cryptid Chicks went to, Cryptid Con, which is in Kentucky. And on our way there, we stopped at the Pope Lick Trestle. And, you weren't with us that time. The rest of us were all there, and we were walking around, and it was just kind of a creepy vibe. And suddenly I was overcome with this feeling, with this need that I had to get up to the top of the trestle, right? We all know the story, right? He lures you up there, and for some reason it just went out the window, right? So I had this feeling that, oh my God, I need to get up to the top of the trestle, period. And so I was looking around, trying to figure out, how am I going to get up there? And they have this big fence on the side. It's, I don't know, 10 feet tall, but it's a cyclone fence. And I remember actually walking up to it, and Katie was walking behind me, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I think we need to get up to the top of the trestle. So maybe we can climb the fence. Otherwise, I think maybe we can go around, but I think maybe we can climb the fence, And she's like, Steph, I don't think we should do that. I'm like, I think we should. We need to get up there, Katie. We need to get up there, Katie. I was kind of crazy. It was kind of a frenzy, and she's like, no, Steph, because if you did that, then I would have to do that. And then we just can't do that. And then one of the others that we were with said, hey, you guys come down here. We're going to do a video or something with the bridge in the background. And it kind of broke the spell, right? And then I remember sitting there or standing there thinking, what am I doing here? And I'm like, something had gotten a hold of me. Now, should I have known better? Absolutely. I mean, we protect ourselves all the time. But this time, obviously, I went in there unprotected. This creature got a hold of me and said, oh, yeah, you're going to come up to the top of the trestle. I'm going to lure you up there. Didn't go, thank God. But we went down to the bridge to do this video. That's not the guy I saw, but that's supposed to be a goat man. And I think Trost has some pictures of the actual trestle that I sent him. So it does look very decrepit, very old, right? There is a train on that one. But this is what we caught in the video. Look in that circle. It looks like a goat man. And when we were watching the video later that night in the hotel room, we all just screamed, right? So that is it's a screenshot of one of the video, part of the video. And yes, and I did. I felt nauseous, right? Because it was the whole thing had affected me to this point where it's like, wow. It's like one of the craziest encounters I've ever had. And, we do get that when we're on paranormal investigations. Sometimes if a spirit comes through you, you get nauseous. You get kind of all icky jelly is what I used to say. Same with that one. But I think the proof is in the pudding. The picture is just phenomenal. And then the next time I was down there, you were with too. And we did more of a paranormal investigation. And of course, then we were protected. So none of us felt like we compelled to go up to the top of the trestle. But it wasn't long after that two paranormal investigators were there and they were lured to the top of the trestle and the woman was killed, dead.
Awful.
So what are these creatures? I guess that's what I'm saying. I think sometimes they're scarier than spirits, even if the spirits are, these ishy supernatural creatures that I talk about every once in a while that we come across, that we're never humans, they're just, that's kind of, I think some of these cryptids are kind of on that same measure, they're just, they want to do harm. They want to, kill people. And that's what they live for,
One of the times, so I went there twice as well. One of them was with you. And that one, what I thought was interesting about that is, I think that's the one where we had heard the crow, right?
Yes.
And we did not hear it when we were investigating because it was so loud.
Yeah.
It was so loud. The bird would have had been sitting on our shoulders. Right. It was so loud in that voice recorder.
Yes.
And we listened to, and so if we would have been recording, we would have been like, okay, we've got a bird here that's making way too much noise. You're not gonna be able to hear us. Sorry about that, whatever. We get the audio later and we hear this crow that's just going bonkers.
Yes.
And that was interesting. And then the other time that I went, I was with a group and that was like trying to keep kittens in a basket, keeping people from going up on the trestle. It was they just kept following each other. And I'm like, what are you all doing? I had to get like 4 of them off of the hill. They were going to climb over the fence. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. This was after the one investigator had been killed. And the other one, was in like, whatever, the 2. But it's awful, in that place. Yeah. You wonder like what actually is enticing people to climb up there, unless it's just this idea of climbing up. You go and you just have this idea of let's just see what happens. Let's try it and see if I'm overcome with something. And it's more of like a mental thing than just an actual paranormal thing. But I think the energy of the trestle itself, how much metal is there, is maybe doing some kind of conducting, maybe how it's put together is conducting some kind of energy process that's maybe affecting humans that go there. I mean, it's possible. Someone
Yeah,
with
I don't know.
actual scientific equipment would have to go and study it, of course, but
Yes, yes.
it's interesting for sure.
Oh, yeah, and the fact that we caught that picture, I mean, that's just amazing. Other parent the TV Bunch has investigated there too, and I've never
Mhm.
seen the actual episodes, so I wonder what they found. It would be interesting to kinda go back and see what they
Yeah.
found, you know?
Mhm.
But, yeah, that was crazy talk, and we had some other things when we investigated that time too. I think we caught something an EVP, and I don't know where these EVPs are because it was really kinda just for our own fun, right? So we weren't
Yeah.
serious about it. But
Mhm.
I think one of the other EVPs that we caught was, we said, "Oh, something about the train, there's no trains that come here," and then wasn't there a laugh or something? Like, "Yeah, go up to the
Something like
top."
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was really
Mhm.
interesting, and I know that when we were at a restaurant near there, and the kid that was there, when he found out we were cryptid
Mhm.
researchers and paranormal investigators, oh my gosh, they were telling us these crazy
Yeah.
stories about these cryptids that they had seen on the same railroad track, maybe
Yep.
not at Pope Lick,
And I
but
remember the guy was talking about that beast with the red eyes.
yes, yes, yes,
And what that made me think of is Mothman,
yes,
actually. I
yes.
was thinking, like, I
Yeah,
wonder if he saw
I
Mothman,
know, I know.
especially if he saw a Mothman near the trestle, because there's
Mhm.
been multiple people who have died on
Yes,
that trestle. So maybe he was warning, like, hey, someone's going to get hurt here if you guys don't
exactly.
knock this off.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I don't know. It was crazy talk. So that was like I said at the time I wasn't scared, but then afterwards I'm like, "Oh my god, if I'd actually
mhm,
gotten up there, I probably could be just like all the rest of them dead, you know?
mhm.
Hanging out on the other side, seeing whatever." But yeah, that was crazy. But like I said, the picture is phenomenal. So do you have another story or should I go into the one that I have? And I have a little bit of footage too.
Yeah, go for it.
So when we first started out, so this goes way back. This was like 13 or 14 years ago. I can't remember if it was 2012 or 2013. I'm not sure. We did this property a few times. It's a public place and it's owned by the Forestry Services way up north in northern Minnesota. It's a historical site. It has lots of buildings on it. We're under confidentiality agreements, so I can't tell you exactly where it is or what it is. But just know there's a lot of mystery, a lot of weird circumstances surrounding it. And we went in there and they told us of when we first went in there, it was at Jerry's request because he's from up there and he happened to be there with his brother one time and they saw this woman walking through one of the buildings, and was like a ghostly vision. And he went up there and asked them, hey, have you had any paranormal stories out of here? And they said, well, yeah, actually, we've had electricians because they were redoing some of the buildings to preserve them, and they just leave. They leave all their tools. They never want to come back. They say, don't call us. We're not going to stay here. That's it. Crazy stuff. And he said, well, we saw this vision walking through this one building. And she said, well, that would be pretty hard because there's no floor. There's no
Mm,
floor in there. Right. So anyway, so we went back numerous times and the gals from the Forestry Service accompanied us and they were fabulous. But this one particular time, I think it was maybe one of the first times we were there, and we all split up, of course, because there were multiple buildings. And May and I and Katie were in one. And we caught this footage. It was very scary. It was kind of a scary, it's out in the middle of the woods, the North Woods. There are cougars out there. There is lots of paranormal activity. Bigfoot's probably out there. I mean, I don't know. It's up there and kind of in that area where they're seen a lot. But we caught this video, and it wasn't until after the effect, after we were going through all the videos that we found it. And so it just came to our attention all these years later. I happened to find it on our YouTube channel, and I'm like, oh gosh, we gotta show this. So Jason, can you run that footage? So you'll see there's something right there walking through the wall, and then you can see it come out the other side. It's like, there you go. It's like an apparition of some kind. And that's in slow motion. I wish I could have slowed it down more because if you would see it in real time, it was like, "Boop," you know what I mean? But
yeah.
it's just, I mean, that's like one of the best we have a few of those things, but that one is truly cool. And I remember when I found it, the whole team is like, "Oh my God, we forgot about that." And the newbies
Mm-hmm.
we're just like, "Oh my God, where was that?" And we're like, "Yeah, we'd love to go back there at some point, but and that, like I said, that was a scary place. It was, because there's just so many buildings and there's so much paranormal energy up there, and there's so much weird things that happened up there. There was a guy that killed all of his farm animals, for example, and then shot other people. And I mean, they call Murder Road and, all kinds of things.
Sure.
So, yes, I mean, it's crazy for this little out in the middle of the woods. So, anyway,
Wow.
so yeah, so I had to talk about that a little bit because that was fun. And that was a scary one
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, I think some of my scarier, like in the moment investigations were at some of the prisons that I've been in.
Mhm.
Ohio State Reformatory that had some moments, and Indiana State. Indiana State Penitentiary was um, that was ishy too. But Ohio State Reformatory was probably worse for being in the moment, and because some bad stuff was happening there. Tim ended up getting really hurt when we were there, and I keep saying we should have probably taken him to the emergency room. Probably should have.
Mm,
Like that's one of the
but you
regrets I have. Like
didn't.
we should have
Yeah.
taken him. But yeah, it's so that those because you're going to a location that has hardened criminal energy. They're bad people when they were alive. They're not
Mhm.
just totally reformed as soon as they pass
No,
away, so
no, no.
so those were ishy, very ishy. And you
Mhm,
could just feel them
mhm,
crawling all over you when you're walking through this place. And it's just like
mhm,
you can't even hardly breathe because you think, what if something
mhm,
happens and we get in
mhm.
trouble and can't get out
Exactly.
of this one?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, and
mhm.
Jerry same, right, down at Walcott. I mean, he was attacked by those ishy here we go, ishy supernatural creatures that were never human, because we've
Mhm.
seen them. And, that was bad. That was just super, super, super bad, And I know when we talk about these ishy supernatural things, there was another place that we were at way out in western Minnesota, Heidi. We've talked about this a lot. It was near
Mhm.
Montevideo, and you know what the vibe is like out there. It's like,
Yep.
I mean, it was this side, probably half hour, 45 minutes, but in that same area. And it was an old house. And I went downstairs with the owner, and there was a well room down there. And this well was enormous, right? So it was like, I don't know, a good 9 feet in diameter. And yes, it was capped off, it had a concrete top,
Mm.
but spirits come through concrete very easily. But it was still there. And it was like old time stones, and it was in the floor, and it was in its own room. And this basement was creepy anyway. People had died there, people had been murdered there. And up on the walls, I could see in the corners, it was like ishy, black, oily things coming down, and
Mm.
it was supernatural, right? It was a supernatural, some ishy creature thing. And I didn't want to scare the owner too much, so I didn't say much. I just said, okay, well, let's go back upstairs,
Mhm.
and she looked
Mhm.
at me and she said, oh my God, girl, after the look in your eyes, I don't think I ever want to come down here again.
Yeah.
But I brought Jerry down, and then I said, Jerry, you got to look at this thing. And he saw it too. Not everybody can see it, but those of us who can are like, oh my God, how do you even deal with that? It's just, ooh, ooh. But
Mhm.
yeah, so, ooh, anyway, lots of thrilling, creepy things we've encountered, over
Yeah.
the years,
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost hard to quantify when you've been investigating for that long. It
Mhm.
starts to become this blur that because in the beginning it was like, wow, 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 look at
Yeah,
all these. And now
yeah,
it's just like, yeah, I
yeah.
don't even know all of them.
I
There's just so
know.
much
I
stuff.
know. There's just it's so much. Jason's
Yeah.
saying cold plasma, maybe. I don't know. It was black and oily looking is all I know. And it was in like coming out from the ceiling in the corners. Look at me pointing, whatever. But
Mhm.
I just remember, ooh, and it we there was a lot of activity there, and we did clear it. And I actually used Reverend Schrader, who used to be a exorcist. He had given Jerry a kit on how to maybe try to exorcise. So Jerry did the whole saging and stuff, and then one of the other team members and I went through and did this. And man, we had the camera going, and we got some crazy stuff on there. Like we had a voice saying, "Get it away, get it away." It was like we were putting holy water, on the windows and stuff. And I mean, but whatever we did worked. It was clear for a very long time until the mother-in-law started conjuring again. And they came back. So
Yeah.
but yeah, ick, right?
Yeah.
Creepy, Halloweeny. Here we go. But anyway, so that's a few stories for you. It's just kind of a fun thing to do in Halloween and kind of talk about all the things that maybe scared us a little bit. Because, like we said, most things don't. I mean, it's interesting. And we're like, oh my God, did you see that? But we're not like, oh my God, So, yeah.
Yeah. I was actually talked to someone the other day, and they, when they said that, so I wrote the book that I wrote, I put stories in that I was like, yeah, that's like some wild stuff in there. But to me, it wasn't very scary. It was just like interesting kind of wild things. And she came up she goes, oh my gosh, I was reading this story and it was so scary. And I thought, and I suppose to other people it would be, but I'm like, gosh, okay. Yeah, I suppose. Cause you just kind of, some of it you get used to dealing with some weird stuff. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I could see where that, I guess now that I look at it from a different perspective, it could be scary. I didn't think it was scary.
Yeah. But I do think that because, when we do our supernatural conversations, people are really scared. You know what I mean? They say, how can you do this? How can you must have nerves of steel, and it's like, no, not really. I mean, once in a while we get pretty scared, but it doesn't happen often. And like you said about the humans, one of the things that I've always said, like even about cryptid research, I'm not afraid of Bigfoot. I'm not even afraid of the Popelik monster. What I'm more afraid of are humans that might be in the woods too, that might try to hurt us, and more so down around here, like our research area, for example, sometimes there's people there, sometimes they're not, but you just never know what their intentions are. Right.
Right.
And that scares me more than a bear or a cougar or any, cryptid. So
about that, I mean, I'm still not wanting to run into any kind of cougar or anything, but humans versus spirits, I would take a spirit every day.
Me too, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Mankind is the most scariest creature for sure.
Yep.
Well, I guess unless you have another story, we could end it. We're a little bit past our time, but hey, it was fun to go over some stories. You know what I mean? So,
and actually, we're in the middle of working on our topic for next week. Tim and I are. So we've got a cool topic for next week that we're actually currently investigating, and hopefully we'll have some evidence that we can show next week in our show for another spin on some spooky stories.
Cool. And in 2 weeks, hey, we're going to be doing a seance before the show, and we'll still have our equipment out for the show, and we'll talk about what happened. And I know that we talk about this a lot, but it'll be more of a seance with that. But when we start our investigations at SIM, we do calling of the spirits, and it's short. It's like 10 minutes, but I do think it calls them all in, right? And then it's active. Then they know they can come in. They know they're not going to be hurt, and then they're more apt to tell us what's going on, So anyway, so Halloween month is going strong. So everyone join us again next week. We'll be at Heidi's studio, I believe. And thank you for watching tonight, and beware of what you might see out there. I know there's a lot of spirits running around right now. I see them all the time when I'm out with Dewey at night and in the morning, and, just pay attention. It's kind of fun. And thank you for watching. Thank you to all the troops that may be watching. Be safe, and thank you for your service.
Yep. And everybody in the chat room, thanks for stopping in and tuning in to us live. Those of you that are watching from wherever you are, whenever you are, thank you so much for tuning into our channel. Go ahead and subscribe on YouTube if you have a chance. And thank you to Jason, our producer in Cryptovania TV, for hosting our show. And we are so happy to be here.
Good night, everyone.
We'll see you next week.